We honoured a great cameraman in the form of Neil Davis at the start of the night. Our next inductee is another famous shooter. His name is David Brill. We saw you cover so many combat zones in your life. As a cameraman, how aware were you of the dangers going in to those combat zones? We all saw how it ended sadly badly for Neil Davis in 1985. You were always after the good shot, as every good cameraman is, but how much was the fear of you coming into grief weighing on your mind?
Well, excuse me. Well, Michael, it's always there. G'day, Jim. Good to see you, mate.
Old colleague, come in a bit closer.
And it's always there. And what I learned from Neil Davis, just watching him operate, and you learn a lot by that because he'd been doing it a long time. But you know, Neil wasn't gung-ho, I'm not gung-ho. You do it because you go that extra mile if you think it's worth it for the story. It's not a good shot, it's a good sequence. It's something you've got to do to tell a story. But my main thing was the people, the suffering of the people. It's easy to film guns going off. It's the suffering after the battles, the refugees, what happens to all these people. We just leave. That's what I've always tried to care about.
That image, we all saw it there, and it stuck with me for many years, of I think she was a 7-year-old Vietnamese girl who'd lost a leg in Vietnam. If you would just briefly tell us the story behind that one.
Well, we were doing a 4-quarter story in Vietnam, Mike Willisey and Robert Sloss, our sound recordist, and myself, and we were out in the battlefields, and that's all very well. But we came across this little girl who was been brought into this makeshift hospital on the outskirts of Saigon, and she had her leg blown off in crossfire when she was 3. Her parents had been killed in the war. She didn't have any family except for her grandmother. And when she was 7, she'd been brought into this hospital to be fitted with this artificial leg made out of bits of old metal, bits of wood. And I'm looking at this, and I'm pretty young. I'm about 25 and not that long out of Tasmania. And I'm thinking, what has she done? Here's an example. What has she done to deserve this? And she was the most beautiful looking child that I'd ever seen, but no expression, nothing. And she just kept staring at the camera, at the lens, and at me. And so I built this segment up of her being fitted with the leg. And when they put the leg on, and she stood up and she held onto the bars and she started to walk for the first time in her life, because she couldn't play with kids with one leg. And she started to smile slightly, and I realised, you know, what has she done? Just one example of that dreadful war. And on the Monday at Four Corners, we had so many phone calls and so many letters and various things and telexes of people saying, what are we doing in Vietnam? And I don't know whether it's true or not, but I heard it that Gough Whitlam got up in Parliament and said, or he said it somewhere, did you see Four Corners, comrades? Did you see that little girl? What are we doing there? And that sort of stuck with me to this day of why I've gone when I can. Because I think the camera and journalism, good cinematography, can be so powerful in the world to change things a bit.
David Brill, congratulations.
Thank you. Well, nice meeting you, Michael.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.